الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعن على أعدائهم أجمعين من عداوتهم إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يا علي ما عرف الله إلا أنا وأنت وما عرفني إلا الله وأنت وما عرفك إلا الله وأنت وأنا صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم صل على محمد. You've been hearing this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam over the past 5 days regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, regarding Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also Rasulullah saying to Ali, Ma arrafka illa Allah wa ana, nobody knows you except Allah and me. So anybody who claims that they understand Ali, according to this hadith, they are liars. They don't understand Ali. How can anybody understand Ali? Let me just give you a few examples of how difficult it is to understand Imam Ali. When people read the hadiths of Imam Ali, they get confused. This is just a small example. Imam Ali, you've heard this before. Imam Ali has said, At-talaqu dunya, At-talaqu dunya, Mahrul Jannah. That the divorcing of dunya, you understand, mahr, dowry, hakmer, dowry. The dowry of heaven is talaqu dunya. You leave dunya, and that is automatically paying for Jannah. This is one of the sayings of Imam Ali. It's simple to understand. But when you read another hadith, which goes like this, it says, "I'mal lidunyaka ka'annaha ahya abadan. I'mal liakhiratika ka'annaka tamutu ghadan." Remember the first and listen to the second. The second one says that work for your dunya, meaning the world, whatever you do in the dunya, as though you are going to live forever. Ahya abad, as though you're going to live forever. And then Mawla Ali says, and then when it comes to the hereafter, i'mal li akhiratika ka'annaha, as though tamutu ghadan, you're going to die tomorrow. If we look at the first hadith, it says talaqu dunya mahrul jannah. The divorce of the dunya is actually paying for the mahr, meaning the dowry of Jannah. And on the other hand, Mawla Ali says, when you work for the dunya, work in this dunya as though you are never going to die. I haven't got the time to actually explain the second hadith. Why? Is because this needs explanation. The first part of the hadith, regarding what Imam Ali has said regarding the dunya, this one sentence made the West what it is today. You think, where did he come out with this? How is he saying this? This one first part of the sentence is what made the West the richest area on the planet. Just 4 words of Imam Ali made the West what it is. A philosopher came up with this idea after Imam Ali, but this is the space. I'm not going to go into the details of it because it will take too much time. But believe you me, and if you want to read upon this, you put into the internet the Protestant work ethic. The Protestant work ethic. And it will tell you how they worked, and they worked according to this hadith. The Protestant work ethic. The Fazail of Imam Ali, I said this before, they are miracles. And even Waqidi, when he wrote his book, Kitab al-Maghazi, he said at the beginning of his pages, he said that Imam Ali is a miracle. The same way as Hazrat Musa's miracle was the asa, the staff. My question, and basically something to think about, how can Imam Ali be a miracle? How can Imam Ali be a miracle? A miracle is something or someone you cannot understand. A miracle, the condition of a miracle is got to be that it is beyond comprehension. You cannot understand a miracle. So anything is beyond comprehension and does defy the laws of physics, is a miracle. Anything which could be understood is not a miracle. Everything the Anbiya have done is beyond comprehension. Because the whole form changes. You know, Hazrat Musa al-Islam's, call it a stick, the asa of Hazrat Musa al-Islam, when he threw it on the ground, it wasn't trickery. There's a difference. The supporters of Fir'aun, they threw their ropes, and the ropes changed into what? Snakes. That was trickery. When Hazrat Musa al-Islam threw the staff, the stick, that changed the form of the stick into an actual blood-running live snake. It actually changed the form, meaning the whole staff would change into a living snake. Whereas the snakes, which were created by the magicians of who? Fir'aun, that was trickery. When we come to the Fazail of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they are on the level of a mu'jiza, meaning that they are beyond comprehension. So, when somebody hears a Fazail of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and they have difficulties understanding, ask one thing. Ask one thing. Before you start objecting to the Fazail of Amir al-Mu'mineen, is, do I have the ability to understand the Fazail of it? That I am rejecting this? At least check with the ulama. This hadith which I've heard, is the narration correct? Don't worry about what is said in the narration. Is the narration correct according to the asnad? That's all you worry about. Don't worry about the contents of the hadith. If you can't understand the contents of the hadith, you cannot understand the contents of the hadith. Why? Because when you look at a miracle in the Fazail of Ali, it is beyond comprehension. But some hadiths of Amir al-Mu'min, the Fazail of Amir al-Mu'min, are hadiths that we understand, the normal. Another issue is that Amir al-Mu'mineen is so unique in the world, is that when you look at the spectrum, from one side of the spectrum to the other, you have those who call Ali Allah. Yes? Don't be shy about it. Yes, there are people who call Ali Allah. So when you call Ali Allah, then that's the final stage. He cannot get any higher than Allah. If people say this, which we don't believe in, but I'm giving you a narrative here. So if people think, right, Ali, we can't understand him, let's call him Allah, and that's the end of it. We can't go any higher than Allah. Nobody can go any higher than Allah. So in their minds, they have done the ultimate to Imam Ali by calling Ali Allah. And then you go through the whole spectrum. Then you have people who are on the borders of calling Ali Allah and Rab. So they say Rab, okay, Allah exists and Ali exists, and what happens? That Allah goes into Ali. Halul. Ali has or receives Allah in him. Like the Christians say this. So you have, I'm not going to go through every spectrum, but then you come to the opposite end. You got to have one end saying Ali Allah, and on the other end you have those who think that killing Ali is worship. Killing Ali is worship. Cursing Ali is worship. We have groups today, even who after 14 centuries have gone, we have groups today who regard Imam Ali as not fit to be worried about. So you have this spectrum. And we are also in this spectrum, the Shia. The Shia are also in the spectrum. We have our beliefs. We have our beliefs of Amir al-Mu'mineen, what his status is, from the aqaid that we have taken from our ulama. So we have a balance. We have a balance. So those who are on either extreme, they are astray. Those who call Ali Allah are astray. Those who call Ali as Mazallah, that he has nothing to do with Islam, they are also astray. But there are some colors in between as well, which have also gone astray. One message in particular to all of you: do not lose your identity as a Shia. Don't call yourselves anything other than a Shia. The word Rafizi is used, no problem. Let them use Rafizi. Rafizi's Imam knew that the Shias were being called Rafizi, and they accepted that. They said that's good, because the followers of Hazrat Musa, they were called Rafizis. So don't worry about being called Rafizis. Don't worry about being called Imamiyah. Don't worry about being called Turabis. This is all within the Shia identity. And I will finish on this point towards the end, what I mean by this. Yesterday, now coming to what I said yesterday, I'm picking up from that point. That the enemies existed. So you had a period where hadiths of Imam Ali were banned. Nobody can say them. People lost their lives in narrating the Fazail of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Lost their lives. Lost their tongues. Lost their welfare. Lost their houses just because of Amir al-Mu'mineen. The wala of Amir al-Mu'mineen. The love of Amir al-Mu'mineen. They lost their lives. So if people have lost their lives, when you hear a hadith in praise of Amir al-Mu'mineen, at least think, this hadith is being narrated by a Maulana or a Zakir. At least think, the chain is gone through in order to come to this mimbar. Maybe many people have died in the process of saving this hadith. Many people have lost their lives in saving this hadith. So this is the reason why. Don't object. First think. And do not lose your identity as a Shia of Ali. I said yesterday that Al-Mahili wrote a book. And also in refutation of that book, Ibn Taymiyyah. Very few of you may have heard the name of Ibn Taymiyyah. But Ibn Taymiyyah in Urdu, he is the father of the Wahhabis. He is the father of the Wahhabis. Unka baab hai. So what he wrote in his book was everything against Amir al-Mu'mineen. The whole of his 8, 9, 10 volumes against Ahlul Bayt. Every hadith in praise of Amir al-Mu'mineen, he rejects it and brings in illogical reasoning, saying if he hasn't got any reasoning, he said no, the narration is weak. He doesn't have to prove anything. And this is the legacy that was inherited in the 8th century of Islam. So he was born about 660 Hijri and died towards the beginning of 700. So, and Allama Hilli was living at the same time. So he wrote the book, Minhaj al-Karama fi Ma'rifat al-Aima, and in response, Minhaj al-Sunnah al-Nabawiyya. So these were two books were written. So that was the manual which everybody used who was against Ali and the Shias. Why? Because Shias were being, Sunnis were being converted by Allama Hilli's book. And you've heard the event of where one of the governors of the Mongol Empire in Iran gave a divorce to his wife and he wanted to marry her. The Sunnis were telling him, no, you can't marry, she has to do a halala. Having to marry another man and then having to go back. So this story you've heard of. Allama Hilli is the one who resolved this one. So when we look at the other group, so you have this spectrum of different colors, of different ideas of Imam Ali. From the extreme, from one extreme to the other extreme. There's another color. It's called the Sufis. I'm not referring to Brother Sufi Ramzan. It's the Sufism, the belief in Sufism. That also played a role in what we are seeing in the world today and what we are experiencing in India and Pakistan today. Let me just give you how this ideology came into existence. And it's important to understand this. So on the one hand, you have this Khawarij, Ibn Taymiyyah, and the followers, the Muhammad and Abdul Wahhab, and the Wahhabis who are following this Khawarij theme in Sunnism. So you have two themes in Sunnism. The Khawarij, they are Sunnis, and also the Sufis, they are Sunnis. But how did the Sufis come into existence? We have the Khawarij, hatred of Ahlul Bayt. How did the Sufis come into existence? And if you read the books on Sufism, the one which I looked at quite a few years back, is that how was the formation of, and this was written by Sunni as well himself, the book is written by Sunni. He says that during the early period of Islam, people were looking at the rulers and looking at this, they're living in wealth, they're living in grandeur, they're living in palaces. How can they be Amir al-Mu'mineen? How can they be Amir al-Mu'mineen? When the people in the streets are dying of hunger in Baghdad, and they are living in palaces, and they have concubines, slaves, women, alcohol, and the people in the streets have nothing. So some individuals, they looked that the Shias are independent of the government. They don't look towards, they look towards other individuals, and they are very spiritual, they're very religious, they're very muttaqi. What do they have that we Sunnis don't have? So what they did, they took the concept of Vilah. They took the concept of Vilayat Ali, but the diluted form. They took the Wala of Amir al-Mu'mineen in the diluted form and said, we like the style of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Because when we look at the way he eats food, he only has one type of food on his table. He does not have two types of food. And when we look at the clothing of Amir al-Mu'mineen, we find that he has patches on his clothing. When we look at the shoes of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they are broken. And these events are famous in Sunni books and Shia books. When Kambar was told by Amir al-Mu'mineen, Kambar, go to the bazaar and get my shoes mended. He looks at the shoes and says, Mullah, there's nothing to mend here. There's nothing to mend here. I mean, the whole shoe is broken. Kambar, you still go and get it mended. And when they go to the bazaar, Amir al-Mu'mineen buys clothes. He buys the cheapest for himself and the more expensive one for Kambar. This is something that Islamic history has not seen. This is a style Islamic history has not seen. And when these Fazails came out into the public, the Sunnis were astonished that Amir al-Mu'mineen is like this. So what they did, they had a problem. If they openly, this is the time of the Abbasids now, not the Umayyads, the Abbasids. When they looked at Amir al-Mu'mineen, they said the Shias are living their lives. And believe you, in history, the Shias were the most pious, the most honest, the most muttaqi, the most pious in religion than any other sect. And that had an impact upon the Sunnis. And being like this, and then the oppression upon the Shias, that the government was killing the Shias. And you've heard this. The walls of Baghdad were filled with the blood of Sadat. With the blood of Sadat. The mortar which was made in order to erect the walls in Baghdad, they were made from the blood of Sadat. So seeing this, the Sayyids and the Shias being killed, and yet they still profess to be Shias. They still want to be called Shias. They're not hiding their faith. So they had a problem. The people who seen Imam Ali, they said, if we become Shia, we face the same fate. So what they did, they made a new sect. Sufism is a sect. It's a sect. And they themselves don't know where the word Sufism has come from. I have read and done my research on this. They don't know. There are different goals where Sufism comes from, or meaning the word comes from. However, where the origination is, that is admitted. So when we look at what Sufis then did, they then started to bring the Walayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen into their religious narrative, into their religion. The religion which they had, they brought Amir, because they could not see anything amongst anybody. So what happens is that now they begin to develop their religion, their faith of Sufism. Those of you who know. Some of you have heard the name of Bishr Hafi. Bishr Hafi. Bishr Hafi is regarded as a Sufi saint, but his becoming a pious moment is because of Imam Musa Qasim al-Islam. Bishr Hafi. I'm not going to narrate the event because it will take time. But those who want to take a note, read on the life of Bishr Hafi. Hafi means the barefooted. Hafi, barefooted. And this is when Imam Musa Qasim passed the house and said, who lives here? You've heard this event. They regard him as a Sufi. Behlul, they regard him as a Sufi. See what they've done. They are now taking what the Shia narrative is, what the Shias have, then they have different silsila. Silsila. They have different chains, silsila. Silsila Naqshbandiya, Silsila Qadariya, Silsila Shazaliya, and it goes on and on and on. If you want to go, maybe you'll find maybe 250, 300 Azaliyas and Azaliyas. So they developed the concept that Amir al-Mu'mineen is the head of all the walis. Amir al-Mu'mineen is at the forefront of all the walis. And then we have barakah, we have fairs from Amir al-Mu'mineen, and it goes into their sheikh. Which goes into their sheikh. So that wilaya goes and carries on. And even today, you have the silsila of peers in Pakistan. And all over the Muslim world, there are peers. Be it in the Arab world, be it in Pakistan, be it in Egypt, be it in Iraq, Sunni Iraq I'm talking about, not the Shias, in Mosul and that area. You have the Sunnis there. They have this silsila. But the silsila goes back to Amir al-Mu'mineen except one silsila. It is called the Naqshbandiya. the Naqshbandi. Their silsila goes back to Abu Bakr. So they adopted this as their ideology. So when Ibn Taymiyyah comes along, he sees that they have Wilaya, Ibn Taymiyyah, of the 8th century. He sees that in Sunnism, he's dealing with the Shias, but how am I going to deal with the Sunnis who claim to be Ahlul Sunnat wal Jama'at? So what he does, in order to tackle both problems, Sunni problem, meaning the Sufi problem, and the Shia problem, is that he then writes on Rasulullah. He writes on Rasulullah. Muawiyah did something. Muawiyah began the cursing upon Imam Ali al-Islam. Salama wrote a letter to Muawiyah saying, "O Muawiyah, do you not know Rasulullah said, Man sabba aliyan faqad sabbani. Man sabbani faqad sabb Allah." O Muawiyah, have you not heard? Rasulullah said, whoever curses me, yani curses Ali, curses me. Whoever curses me, curses Allah. She said this to Muawiyah. Muawiyah knew of this hadith. He did not have the courage to openly curse Rasulullah. He did not have the courage to openly curse Rasulullah. So what he did, he cursed Ali knowing of this hadith, when even Salma reminded Muawiyah, what you are doing, you are cursing Rasulullah. Ibn Taymiyyah, he does it another way. Muawiyah cursed Amir al-Mu'mineen. Ibn Taymiyyah does another tactic. He starts on Rasulullah. He doesn't start on Imam Ali, he starts on Rasulullah. He says that loving Rasulullah is bid'ah. Loving Rasulullah is bid'ah. Because only Allah can be loved. And showing expressions of love, meaning the Eid Miladun Nabi. The Eid Miladun Nabi is expression of Sufism. They took that from Shiaism. Sunnis, their biggest event of the year is Eid Miladun Nabi. Eid Miladun Nabi is the biggest. They do it all year long. I mean, forget the 12th of Rabi al-Awwal. They do it all year long. All we have is Eid Miladun Nabi, Eid Miladun Nabi. My brothers, this was also started by the Shias. Eid Miladun Nabi was started by the Shias, both in Baghdad and in Egypt at the same time. Ibn Taymiyyah knew that what the Sunnis are doing is actually following in the footsteps of the Shias. He knew that they are following in the footsteps of the Shias. So what he said, that doing Miladun Nabi is bid'ah. How the Arabs say, bid'ah. Everything is bid'ah, or haram, or shirk. So doing Miladun Nabi, remembering the Milad, is bid'ah, is shirk, is haram. So they came out with this theory. They also said that traveling to Masjid al-Nabi for the intention of doing the ziyarat of Rasulullah is also bid'ah and haram. You've heard this. When his children, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and the Wahhabis, when they came along, and this is mentioned in Sunni books, Shia books, they've all said this. They said when he went to the grave of Rasulullah, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, he said, "Oh Rasulullah, my walking stick is of more benefit than your grave is to me." If he can say this about Rasulullah, what value in the eyes is Amir al-Mu'mineen? Nothing. So this is the reason why you find that in Saudi Arabia and wherever the Wahhabi faith is, they don't have any respect for the Ahlul Bayt. Who are Man Hussain, Man Hassan, Man Ali? Who is Ali? Who is Hussain? They've never, and I have spoken to Muslims who said, who is Hussain? who is Ali? Who is Hassan? Who is Fatima? Because this is the brainwashing that has come from this Wahhabi ideology. Wahhabi ideology. So they came along, the Sufis, and then when the Sufis came along, they started different ideas. One Sufi sect is in India. They spread all over the world. They spread all over the world. One Sufi sect is in India. If you have a dictionary here, the Al-Feroz dictionary, and if you go into, the word is Malang. The word is Malang. If you go and look at the word Malang, it has three definitions of what a Malang is. The final definition is Madar Shah ke Murid. Madar Shah ke Murid. Who is Madar Shah? I didn't know. When I was looking this up, I didn't know who Madar Shah was. I then typed in Google, did some research, and found out who they were. The reason why I was concerned is some of my Shia brothers were calling themselves Malangs without knowing what the word Malang meant. And I thought, well, in Islamic history, I've had a look at Islamic history, both Shia history, Sunni history, but I could not find anything to do with Shia and a Malang. So who are these Malangs? You have a definition in your mind, and then I have a definition in my mind. We both might not agree on the definition, but one thing is for sure. Do they have anything to do with Shiaism? And the answer is no, they don't. Why? Because if you read who they come from, it is either Aba Yazid Bistami, Sufi, Madasha, and also Maruf Karhi, Junaid Baghdadi. They are all Sufi peers. And that is where the silsila, their silsila goes. And also, this, if you want to, you can actually go onto the internet, onto YouTube. You'll find that they don't cut their hairs. They don't cut their hairs. There's a narrative, I'm not going into the narratives, but there's a narrative behind that. Why they don't cut their hairs. Beards, they don't cut their hair. And even on their own website, I've seen it, they try to manipulate it. There is no regard for Sharia. There's no regard for what? Sharia. What does that mean? There's no regard for namaz, roza, hajj, zakat. And who are they? They are a Sufi order. Now you tell me, somebody who has done some research knows that these people are nothing to do with Shiaism, and then on the mimbar of Rasul, they come along and they say, we are the Malangs of Ali. That pains me. That pains me. To see people, they might not know. I give them the benefit of the doubt. They don't know. But you know now. And if you don't believe me, you can ask any alim, go onto the internet, do your own research. They are a Sufi order. It's Sufi who have gone astray. And many Sufis have gone astray. Sufis have gone, one of the Sufi peers said, Anal Haq, I am Haq. And he was killed. Even by the Sunnis, he was killed. So when the Shias look at all this narrative, you've got to be aware. So when Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab came along, he used the theories of Ibn Taymiyyah to now implement the Wahhabi ideology. Not going to the graves. And this is why Janatul Baqi in 1932 was destroyed, from this very ideology. They also wanted to destroy the haram of Rasulullah. They actually made plans to destroy the Rosa of Rasulullah. Even they prepared the men to go and destroy the haram and the dome of Rasulullah. If you look on Google, you will find on the dome of Rasulullah a person who is stuck to the haram and the Rosa of Rasulullah. You think he was actually the one who began And what happened? Electric came, Bijli came from the skies, killed him, and he's been stuck there ever since. As a warning until Yawm al-Qiyamah, that anybody who tries to destroy the haram of Rasulullah, this is the anjam, this is the will of Allah. So how does all of this affect the Fazail of Amir al-Mu'mineen? How does all this affect the Fazail of Amir al-Mu'mineen? What we have now is we have Sunnism, which spread the whole world. And what type of Sunnism? The Sufi Sunnism. Only in a small part of Hijaz, Saudi Arabia, and the surrounding areas, you have the Wahhabi Aqidah. Wahhabi Aqidah has spread across the planet. There's no doubt about it. And I have had conversations with Wahhabis. I went to prison, I wasn't arrested, I went to prison to go and give khutbah in prison. And I found many Jamaicans had accepted Islam, and even the Imam, the prison Imam, who invited me, he said, and he could not recite properly, he couldn't say the azan properly, and he was the Imams of these people. And unfortunately, I've seen people from, various different backgrounds. And I seen that they were all converts. All converts. They were all, some were white, some were black, all converts. And this question has been raised in my mind many years. So I knew the reasons why they converted. But people in government, even today, they want to know why people convert to Wahhabism. Why people convert to Wahhabism. And there has to be a reason. There has to be a reason why so many people, my fathers and my grandfathers, they know. In Pakistan, there was a time, even in India, calling somebody a Wahhabi is like swearing at him. Now, we are, alhamdulillah, Salafis, Wahhabi Salafis. There's no shame now. Why? It's because there are so many Wahhabis everywhere. There's masjids. One thing which just came to the top of my mind, I just mentioned in passing, is that he is a khabis, Irfan Rashidi. You've heard this name, Irfan Rashidi. He comes on TV, speaks against Shias. He says that one thing I do like about the Shias is that when you go to their masjid, you can hear that this is the Shia masjid. They say, Ashhadu anna aliyun waliyullah. So you know that this is the Shia masjid. They say with the Wahhabis, they do everything the same as the Sunnis, and we don't realize they're Wahhabis until it's too late. They've taken over our masjids. Many masjids in the UK have been taken over by the Wahhabis by their slow infiltration. So how do the Wahhabis preach to these people? They say that Islam is very simple. Don't listen to the Shias. Don't listen to the Sufis. Sufis, they start dancing. The Turkish dervish, they do the dance. Have you seen it on TV? Yeah. The whirling dervish, they start dancing. They hold their hands like that and start dancing. So don't follow them. They are doing bid'ah and they are doing shirk. They go to the graves of their pir, and the same with the Shias. They do the same as well. So Islam is simple. Just follow the sunnah of Rasulullah and just pray. And just fast. And keep a beard. And make sure your trousers are up to your ankles or knees. So that is the symbol of this simplistic religion. So every religion, there are extremes where people are misguided on both sides. One side is that the Wahhabis, they say, look, just do the salat, follow the sunnah, keep a big beard, nice big beard, fluffy, and also make sure your trousers are up to your knees and you will go to heaven. Very simple. That's all you have to do, is pray. Wow. And this report I read. In universities, students, the first interaction they have with Islam is through the Wahhabis. Our organizations, Sunni organizations, are non-existent in universities. And when they go through this system, the Wahhabi brotherhood, they embrace them, they embrace these new converts to Wahhabism, and they give them support. Why? Because Saudi Arabia is giving them money. So we don't have that interaction. So when they have this, they become Wahhabis. And the money which is coming through, and even in Bristol, there is a big Wahhabi center for the students. I visited there, and I also seen the books of Ibn Taymiyyah there as well. So in this regard, the Wahhabi ideology is of simplistic religion. Some university professors, they said, Shiaism is actually quite a complicated religion. Why is it complicated? And the word they used was dialectical. Dialectics. In philosophy, there's a word which is with dialectics. Dialectics is when you have to argue points and bring different points in. You're not talking about namaz, roza, hajj, zakat. You're talking about wala. You're talking about imamat. You're talking about adl of Allah. They don't believe in this. There's no concept of adl in Sunnism. No concept, even Ibn Taymiyyah didn't raise the concept of adl of Allah. They all believe that Allah, if He wants, He can send somebody who is very pious, very muttaqi in hell, and somebody who is very, 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 very bad into Jannah. This is the ideology of adl ilahi. So when we have this, on the other hand, you have this ideology. Everybody is looking for an easy solution to go to heaven. Then some people from our own, I'm not saying community, but from our own spectrum, remember the word, from our own spectrum, I'm not saying the Shia spectrum, the spectrums around the Shia spectrum, the range. They say, look, if you believe in Ali, then that's all you have to do. The Wahhabis did the same in making people into Wahhabis. And these people who say that Ali is all you have to do, believe in Ali and you will go to heaven. That's it. You don't have to do namaz. On the one hand, they're saying there's no Wala, there's no Ali, there's no Rasulullah, just do this and you will go to heaven. And on the other hand, they're saying that all you have to do is believe in Wala, believe in Ahlul Bayt, and that is sufficient and you will go to heaven. So you have extremes on both sides. I'm going to finish on a couple of points, and inshallah this will be the end of these 5 lectures. And unfortunately, I have to say this, there are many things that I could not say. Many Fazail of Amir al-Mu'mineen which I could not discuss. When I was researching this topic, I had hundreds of hadiths that I thought would be of real interest to people to listen to. Obviously, I only managed maybe 4 or 5 hadiths, maybe 10 maximum. So when we look at what we have in Shiaism today, is that Shiaism is also under threat. We have it, our Imam, to protect us. But it is also our responsibility to protect Fazail of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Protect the Wala of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Protect why is the Wala so important. There are hadiths which say that whoever believes in Amir al-Mu'mineen and has the hope of Amir al-Mu'mineen, he dies a sinner, if he is a sinner, that during the time of Barzakh, his sins will be eaten like dry wood eats, fire eats dry wood. That's the way the Wala, the love of Ali Muhammad, will eat away the sins. There's no doubt about it. But the requirement is that you have to keep your identity. Do not call yourself that you are not, unknowingly. And if anybody says that he is a malang, ask him, do you know who the malangs are? Do you know where this comes from? Do they have anything to do with Shia? And mine, as a student of Islamic studies, for me, if there is nothing in any source telling that we belong or this firqa has attachment to us, then how could I say that they are part of the Shias? So, on the final point, is that, and I mentioned this at the beginning, and I'm going to finish on this, is that when a Fazail of Amir al-Mu'mineen comes, it is the sir of Allah. Fazail Ali are the secrets of Allah. They are the secrets of Allah. Rasulullah, like Brother Rajbi recited a hadith, that if Rasulullah started to tell the Fazail of Amir al-Mu'mineen, people would take the dust from the feet of Amir al-Mu'mineen and worship that dust. And the wuzu, water, which falls from Amir al-Mu'mineen, they would use that as a blessing. This is what Rasulullah has said. So, when we look at the Fazail of Amir al-Mu'mineen, be thankful to your parents that you have been born into this religion. Because not everybody has the privilege to come and sit in the Majlis of Ali Muhammad. Just a few points on Musab. There is a saying of Imam Hassan al-Islam, which says to Hussain, La yawmaka, La yawmaka ka yawmaka ya Abu Abdullah. Meaning that there is no day like your day. La yawm ka yawmaka ya Abu Abdullah. There is no day like your day. And this sums up the whole of the tragedy of Karbala in one way. And often I have seen this in many masjids. And even here, it is mentioned, nobody knows even where this hadith comes from. It comes from Imam Hassan al-Islam. He said that your day, the day of Karbala, is like no other day. But if we remember Karbala, we also have to remember the day the Prophet also passed away. For Imam Hassan, 7, Imam Hussain, 6, Bibi Zainab, at 5 years of age, having to see their house being burnt at that age, having to see their mother being whipped in front of their own eyes, their own mother. I ask you, just to imagine how you would feel if your own mother was being whipped in front of your own eyes and you were children. And this is the reason why Imam Hassan said that my musibat of my martyrdom compares nothing to what my mother suffered. My mother suffered the whips of Kunfus. She suffered the whips of Umar. She suffered the breaking of her ribs. If that wasn't enough, when Imam Ali was being dragged towards the masjid with the rope around his neck, Bibi Fatima Zahra held on to the kamarband of Mawla Ali. And she said, Khallu Abul Hassan, let Abul Hassan go. But whilst they were dragging Imam Ali, Bibi Fatima Zahra was being dragged along, held by her hand to the belt of Imam Ali. And whilst she was being dragged along, she was also being whipped. Imam Hassan, Imam Hussain, Bibi Zainab, she is seeing this. And the tragedy is that the whole of these events were going to be enacted out 50 years later in Karbala. We see Bibi Zainab being whipped. We see Bibi Sakina being whipped. لا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين الذين ظلموا أيمن